being stopped by law enforcement officers disproportionately. And he said, that is the truth. Those were his words. And I said, there goes the presidency. In siding with Gates, in criticizing a white police officer, who I might add, we now had a long history of teaching classes in racial profiling at the Cambridge Police Academy, Obama alienated white voters. The New York Times analyst Matt Bai referred to Obama's foray as, quote, a calamitous mistake. A Pew Research poll conducted that week found that Obama's approval rating among white voters had instantly dropped from 53% to 46%, and thus the story of the elections last November. In my opinion, what's happening in Wisconsin right now wouldn't be going on if it weren't for that press conference, at least not to this degree. 1 year later, in July 2010, President Obama was thrust into another racial uproar, this time over the administration's mishandling of the Shirley Sherrod case. You recall, she was an African-American who was dismissed by the Secretary of Agriculture based upon a video clip of remarks circulated by a right-wing website taken out of context that appeared to suggest that Sherrod had discriminated against white farmers. Obama, who was smarting from the racial backlash in the Gates matter, was determined not to be accused by the right of reverse racism, and therefore he was, in a sense, forced to overreact in the Sherrod matter. Let's move to more recent period as we approach the 2010 congressional elections. The Republicans, along with their right-wing allies, it seems to me, decided to make Obama's so-called otherness a key issue in the congressional election. To make the election, as best they could, a referendum on Obama, the president, on his personal history. In September 2010, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich claimed that Obama, quote, is so outside our comprehension that you can only understand him if you understand, quote, Kenyan anti-colonial behavior, whatever that means. Gingrich added, this is a person who is fundamentally out of touch with how the world works, who happened to have played a wonderful con, as a result of which he is president. Gingrich was shorthanding an essay that had just appeared in Forbes magazine, written by the conservative theorist Dinesh D'Souza. You might remember him, Liberal America, that book about 25 years ago, in which D'Souza was previewing his now best-selling book called The Roots of Obama's Rage. According to D'Souza, this is pretty wild stuff. Quote, our president is trapped in his father's time machine. Incredibly, the United States is being ruled according to the dreams of a Leo tribesman of the 1950s, this philandering, inebriated African socialist who raged against the world for denying him the realization of his anti-colonial ambition is now setting the nation's agenda through the reincarnation of his dreams in his son. You see, the trouble with you folks is that you don't listen to what the Republicans listen to, and you think that you're not aware of these things. Well, they are. D'Souza concluded, quote, Obama is the first American president to actually seek to reduce America's strength, influence, and standard of living. Rush Limbaugh picked up on that and said that Obama's antipathy to America is based upon his race. In Rush Limbaugh's words, payback is what this administration is all about. This shrill attack upon Obama's cultural affinity, the general portrayal of otherness based on ideology, his upbringing, and inescapably his race, is, of course, an effort to galvanize the social conservatives, Republicans, for the 2010 congressional election. It adds a sinister subplot to his economic agenda. In May 2010, just before, not after, but before the controversy surfaced about the building of a Muslim mosque in downtown Manhattan, a poll conducted by Pew Research found that 18% of Americans thought that Obama was a Muslim, that 43% said they didn't know his religion, and just 34%, just 1 out of 3 Americans accept Obama at his word that he's a Christian. This is extraordinary. And finally, the last, I guess, racial issue for the 2010 congressional elections was the tough immigration law in Arizona, which subjected immigrants to deportation for failing to carry documents proving their legal status. The Obama administration properly filed suit against the law. A federal district judge blocked the law from taking effect, pointing to the practice of racial profiling, stating, this is, quote, there is a substantial likelihood that officers will wrongfully arrest legal resident aliens. But of course, with polls showing the majority of Americans favoring the Arizona immigration law, Obama's position in winning a suit against the law's enforcement was clearly going to have racial backlash to it. Now let's move to the congressional elections, and the last handout you have will show you, well, I don't want you to look at it yet, I want you to guess, okay? But we'll show you the results of the election. In Obama's own words, the Democrats suffered a shellacking in the election. Republicans, as you know, regained control of the House of Representatives, winning an unprecedented 62 seats. But the real action was in the state legislatures, as we're seeing today. Republicans now hold more seats collectively in the House of in the state legislatures, as they picked up over 600 seats. They hold more seats today than they have since 1928. Now 2 years ago, Democrats swept the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Now I want to know, really, I want to know what changed so much in these 2 years that now the country, in Michigan, it's 28 Republicans and 12 Democrats in the state Senate. You know, it's 3 to 1. Why did that happen? Well, it's for you to try and figure out. It seems to me that Obama has become the magnet for blame. He's become, as someone put it, the Velcro president, not the Teflon president, as Reagan was. Overall, in congressional elections, the Republicans won 54% of the vote to 46%, exactly reversing Obama's 53-47 victory himself. And now if you look at the results on the third page, just in terms of that second grouping by race. In terms of the Latino vote, Obama got 66% of the Latino vote, down 1% from 2 years ago, I should say the Democrats got. The African American vote was 91%, down only 4%. So what explains the debacle for the Democrats? Obviously, it's the white vote. And as you look at that last column under race and look at the D, you can see the Democrats got 38% of the white vote in the 2010 congressional elections and all the House elections nationwide. That's the lowest figure you'll see on the chart. That's the lowest figure on record. That's impossible. And yet, there you are. And so, in conclusion, it seems to me that racial politics played a role in the last 2 years. It's taken its toll, and the numbers are irrefutable. A poll taken just last month, asking Americans during the King holiday, asking Americans, do you think that we've made progress toward racial equality? The results were the same as was the case in 2006, the same numbers. So the election of the president hasn't resulted in people saying we've made any further racial progress. Referring to critics who have questioned Obama's citizenship, mocked his Kenyan heritage, and labeled his stance on health care as socialism, Professor William Cobb of Rutgers University concludes, quote, the exuberance and thrill of seeing an African-American elected to the presidency has been tempered by the outrageous claims that we've heard about him. We started off this talk by noting that in 1901, W.B. Du Bois said that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. It seems to me this problem continues unabated. I would suggest that the election of an African-American president, not like the election of many African-American mayors 30 years ago, has proved, unfortunately, to be more symbolic rather than substantive in terms of race relations in America.
Thank you.
Well, my mentor, who was president of DILIT, Senator Du Bois Cook, once told me when I gave a kind of a grim report, I think it was 1978, right after the Bakke decision, I said, I don't know if I want to go before the group and tell them this stuff. And he said, you know, Monte, the truth is always empowering.